What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Gotta Get Back, the Samurai Jack and Review Show. Welcome to episode 54. My name is Kyle, your host. Welcome to Project Potter. If you guys haven't seen the show before, it is a review of every episode of Samurai Jack, a favorite character, a favorite scene, a score out of 10, and some trivia. If you guys remember, we kicked off season 5 last episode with a very colorful and action-packed episode. This one has a lot of action too, so we're going to kick it right off here, guys. We actually begin this episode in the Pit of Hate, which is Aku's lair. And this is the first time we find out that Aku sleeps, because he's actually in like his little Aku bed at the bottom there. He opens up a drawer, and like his flaming eyebrows actually are not, like he takes them out like contacts basically at the end of the night. So he's got like a malaise face look, and he puts on his eyebrows, and he kind of does the stretching and twists himself up, and he's just like, he's very like nonchalant about it. They're like, hey, Aku, there's a tribute here for you. And he kind of like slowly rises up, and he looks at like these muck creatures that are just like completely made out of like mud basically and dripping everywhere. And they're like, Aku, we have brought you a statue, and it's just like a muck, it's like a thing of Aku but just made completely of mud. And he's like, what are you doing? He's like, I just got this vacuumed. He's like, don't you know that? He's like, leave. And so that's pretty funny. But the scientists come over to Aku, and they're like, Aku, we have great news for you. He's like, oh, what is it? And he just couldn't care less. And they're like, we have the ultimate beetle droid or whatever, the ultimate Aku beetle. It's just this massive beetle. And Aku is like, why would I care about that? And they're like, Samurai Jack. They're like, he's the bane of your existence. Don't you remember? And he goes, no, that was the old Aku. He's like, this is the new Aku. He's like, the new Aku doesn't care about that person at all. And they're like, if you want to destroy him, go ahead. But they're like, this Aku does not care in the slightest. And he slowly sinks down. And this is where we get a great scene where Aku is talking to himself as a therapist, and he's on the couch, and then the therapist is on there, and he's talking about how like, what's going on with you lately? And he's just like, I thought after I destroyed the last time portal that and he goes to say samurai, and he's like, we don't use that word here. He's like, it's a safe place. He's like, I thought that he would just, die, and they like yell at each other. But he's like, he hasn't even aged in 50 years. And he's like, I just don't know if I can take that. And Aku like goes down into his seat, and he's just like a face, and it's just like into the chair, and it's really funny. And he's like, yes, that is most unpleasant. And he's like, yes. He's like, if only someone could take care of that for me. And they like look at the camera, and it's pretty funny. But we cut over to like a shot of like this white wolf, and kind of going through like the forest, and there's a crossroads, and he goes left. So we'll get back to that in a bit. But we cut back to Jack on the bike, and he's also at a crossroads. So it seems that these two are kind of parallel to each other. And I think the white wolf is supposed to be like Jack's inner creature. So it's kind of weird that they chose this, but there's a bunch of like tigers that come up. It's like tiger creatures, whatever. They come up on the white wolf, and there's like a fight there. Jack has to stop in the middle of the forest, and all of a sudden he starts getting attacked, and he is absolutely wrecked by the daughters of Aku, dude. Before that happens, the giant ultra beetle comes up, and Jack just takes it out so easily. He throws a spear, and it turns and spins through everything and just blows it up. So their ultimate beetle instantly destroyed by Jack. He's like, oh my god, dude. But he does come across a tripwire, which takes his bike out there, and then he's punched, and he's kind of taken by surprise. And then the 7 daughters of Aku, dude, they're running around. They're super fast, and they slowly punch him a couple times. They shoot his gun out and break his gun, and then they start just chipping away all of his armor. And Jack is just getting his ass whooped, dude. So he's like kind of caught off guard. He goes down there, and then he takes his machine gun, and he's like, and he just fires it all around, dude. And this is obviously some of the rage too, that Jack is just tired of fighting all the time, and he's just not having a good time. So and he can't see them obviously, and he's very rarely is Jack outmatched in combat. But in this episode, you can tell that's like some frustration there. But he does actually like run away. He takes like a grenade belt or whatever, and he throws it back there, and everything explodes. And then he finds like an old piece of metal that he hides under, which is the scene behind me here. And Jack is looking around, and this is where we get kind of Jack's inner thoughts. And this is kind of like Mad Jack that we saw way back in the early seasons, where this is like his own doubt, like manifesting itself. And he's like, I'll take care of it. He's like, they're just nuts and bolts. And he's like, how do you know? He's like, this looks bad. He's like, it always looks bad, but I always figure it out. He's like, I always find a way. I always do. And he's like, wouldn't it be easier just to, end it all? And he's like, there's no way back to the past. And he's like, so there's no more honor left. He's like, the only honorable thing would be, and suggesting suicide. And Jack is like, no. He's like, I will find a way. And so these are obviously Jack's like darker inner thoughts there, the hate in his heart that is kind of eating away at him. He looks out and he sees the samurai again. He's like, don't you want to join the ancestors? So it's ancestors who are dead. Again, these are the suicidal thoughts of Jack. But Jack is like, no, not yet. And he starts running out in the rain. He's like, I'll make it. I have to make it. And he's running out and the lightning flashes and then all the Aku daughters are behind him. And he's like, oh, like he was not expecting that. But he runs to like an old abandoned temple. This is really cool because they all chase after him. And then we get the scene where it's the 7 daughters in there and they split up and they're like going through different corridors here. And there's like these little green, like light bugs, basically they're going around and they're going through. There's like a huge, like overgrown tree in the middle and they're climbing up and out of, and they're looking for Jack and they can't find him. And they're swimming underground and it like leads to a secret passage and still can't find Jack, but there's like really cool playing with light where they're going in and out of the shadows. And Jack is kind of sulking around and he's nervous because he doesn't have any weapons right now. He doesn't have any armor. He's a little outmatched, but there's a great scene where he's walking through and the light is like, it's just a little bit of the face that we see and it's the light bug. And then we get like awesome black and white shot where he's in pitch black and then like the Aku daughters are throwing like the chain at him. There's like one chain with like a hook on the end, like a knife or like a scythe almost, and he's avoiding that. And we get flashes of them. Jack eventually like runs the other way. He goes to jump on the tree, but someone is actually hiding in the tree. So he like jumps above the knife, and then one of his daughters comes out with 2 blades, and he has to like dodge all those. He kicks her in the face, and then he runs away. He tries to dive into the pool, but then there's another daughter waiting there for him. So he's just completely outmatched, but he goes to the floor, kicks off like a diver would, and then like avoids the 3 of them underwater. Jack is still running. He's basically just like trying to escape at this point. He falls down through the hole there. There's like a big mountain of dirt that they go down. The daughters look down and then they follow him down there. And there's this amazing shot where there's like these roots with all these green bugs around there. And there's all these like tombs in there. And they all look identical, and they don't see Jack anywhere, so they start running around. There's a huge like king at the top with a skeleton at the top there. We think maybe Jack's hiding in there, but he's not. But it's like this awesome aerial shot, and all these tombs are around, and they're trying to find them. They're trying to find them, and there's one little green light bug that's stuck in there with Jack, and it's kind of like illuminating his tomb. And he's like hoping it will go out and hoping it will go out, and he keeps looking at it. And so the daughters of Aku notice this, and they all go around the same tomb. The light goes out and then they slam down at the same time. Jack jumps right before that happens. So it's like him in the air and the 7 of them are like slicing down. So now he's back on the run. He gets hit a couple times. It bounces off a couple tombs. They throw the chain with the scythe on it and it gets him for a second. And he's got the sword and now he's got to jump and dive. And he's getting pretty wounded from this. One of the daughters of Aku like takes a spear as Jack's like in front of the king now on the throne. And it goes through the back of him, but Jack like narrowly avoids it. And he's still running. He's got like a little hatchet axe now, and he's running, and the camera goes behind him, and it's like he's going through his different corridors, and it's like shifting subtly, and the music's going, and it's like, I'm like, whoa, dude, like here we go. Jack's just running for his life, and he comes around a corner, and there's one Aku daughter that was like in front of him. And he kind of is surprised and he starts fighting her and he fights her off a little, takes out a sword on her other hand, and Jack like spins around and cuts her throat. And he sees blood and he's like surprised. And then she goes down and like her face cracks or her mask cracks open and it's revealed that she is a human, like one of the daughters. And this is the first human that Jack has ever killed. And so he's shocked and he's like, oh no, what have I done? He doesn't say anything, but that's what he's thinking. And so he can go back there towards the daughters of Aku, or he can go forward. She did stab him as well, so he's got like a bad knife wound now. And there's like an opening, so he heads towards the opening. The other daughters of Aku are not there yet. He's got his tuning sword that he got from Scaramucci last time, and he starts banging on the walls to kind of charge it up and blow up those rocks. And he's got his hand that he's using. He's holding onto the other wall for balance, but his hand's all bloody, so he's leaving a blood trail. And Jack kind of just like pretty much passes out into the river as the kind of side explodes, and he heads down the river there, like covered in blood, and the river's running with blood. And then we cut back to the White Wolf, who's also like really, really badly injured and covered in blood. And that is how the episode ends. Okay, guys, the magic sword for this one is going to go to the daughters of Aku. We see them in action against Jack, and even though it's 7-on-1, like you just see how impressive they are. Where his armor that he's taken and built up for 50 years, and he's like a skilled warrior, and no one can ever beat him in combat. They take him out like immediately. So not only do they take his bike out, so he can't get away as quickly. They take out his armor within 10 seconds, and they take him off guard. And Jack is like super keen on his senses, and we wonder if his senses have kind of dulled in 50 years, but he's still an elite warrior, which we saw in the first episode. So yeah, it's just really awesome to see how lethal they are and how skilled they are. And the first ones that like actually match up with Jack. And the fact that they go in a tunnel and he has to like narrowly avoid death like so many times, and then like he's obviously for the first time probably he's ever been in combat like actually scared for his life, and that's I think what leads him to killing one of the daughters, is that like he has to react in a split second and kill her. And it's like normally he would like not take his time to knock her out, but because he's running for his life for so long and he's so outmatched, and he can tell these are daughters are out to kill him, yeah, it's just like a split-second decision. But yeah, the daughters of Aku, we see them in action. Their training was cool last episode, but seeing them against Jack and against a real opponent, and just the way they split up and they hide in different places, and the way they like three of them go over here, and it's like impossible how Jack gets through, and it's crazy. But they get my magic sword for this week just for their impressive combat alone. Okay, so for Portal on Time, guys, the one scene that I loved the most was when Jack was in the scene behind me where he's inside of the like the old piece of metal or whatever, and his inner demons, or Mad Jack, basically is talking to him again, and he's like, when is it going to end? And Jack is trying to tell him like they're all just nuts and bolts, because he's always just fought robots, and so he's fought very few humans. He's never killed any of the past humans, so he just like. He's like, well, I can just slice and dice. And he's like, it's just nuts and bolts. So he's like grown accustomed to killing. But now he's faced with humans, he sees the real consequences of his action, and he feels that guilt. And so that, like, the fact that he's having like suicidal thoughts, and that his inner self is like, wouldn't it be easier just to kill yourself? It's like, wow, dude. And the show has touched on suicide in the past a little bit, but they really like directly addressed it here, and it's crazy and it's dark, and it's like, wow. But Jack he's still got a fighting spirit, and he's like, no, I can't give up. So that's got to be my Portal on Time for my favorite scene this week. Okay, guys, for a score for this one, I got to be honest, even though the action was really good, I didn't like this one as much as the pilot episode of 5. So I'm going to give this one an 8.7. It's a good episode. I really like a couple scenes in it. The action was cool, and it's cool to see like how skilled the daughters of Aku are. This is like the first real challenge that Jack has had in combat. But I don't know. I wish we didn't get them so soon, because we just got introduced to them last episode. And I know it's only a 10-episode series or season, but I wish that we got at least a couple more episodes of build up of them like beating highly trained warriors or something before we just got Jack versus the daughters. So I like that they took him off guard, but I wish they weren't all like against him right now. I do like that he kills one at the end, because it's like now it's down to 6, and it's like, okay. And he's obviously very badly wounded, but I don't know. It was just like, I wish this was the 3rd or 4th episode, not the second one. But with that being said, still a good time. Okay, guys. So Jack facts for this week. We have a good deal of them. Some of these are things that I talked on in the episode here, but we'll just kind of go over them. So this is, as I mentioned, the first time Jack kills a human. When he slits his throat, he shows shock and disgust when she turns out to be flesh and blood, as he believed her to be nothing but nuts and bolts, which we talked about. And then it says here, Gendy officially confirmed that Jack has never killed any humans before this. So the gentleman, Boris, Jajunga, Ayandam, and the princess from the bounty hunters were simply unconscious and injured. And then he's also killed things like the minions of Aku, the evil spirit of the will of King Osric, the sirens, an evil scientist, and the 4 seasons of death, and the entity that haunts Cooney's house. But this is the first human, and so that is a big moment for Jack, and we will see how the ramifications of that going forward. Also, we find out in this episode, guys, that according to inner Jack, or Jack's self there, that Aku has not shown up in years. So we see that, and We also learned that Aku sleeps in this episode. Like this is so he actually has to sleep, and we also learned that his flaming eyes are not part of him, which is kind of weird because if you guys remember when we saw Jack's father accidentally create Aku, he rose up with the eyes. So this seems almost like a retcon, but it's a good little touch that he has to like literally put on his flaming eyes each day, similar to like contacts or glasses. So I like that a little bit. Mentions here that Jack loses all the equipment that he accrued in the 50 years since season 4, which I mentioned, and he loses the tuning blade in the river at the end of the episode that he got from Scaramucci. So his little sword that he got back, a very powerful weapon, that's gone now. And then the fact that Jack has not aged has driven Aku to therapy. He's upset that Jack hasn't died from old age. And this is also something that I mentioned earlier, where he says he doesn't care about Jack anymore. That was the old Aku. This is the new Aku. This is a possible reference to Aku's original voice actor, Mako, who died in 2006 and was replaced by Greg Baldwin. So not only is he a new Aku, but he's like, oh, don't worry, I don't worry about that anymore. But it's a nice way that they also tied in the story where he's just like, dude, it's been so long and I don't know what to do anymore because he's going to be around forever. So what I kind of touched on, guys, the wolf in this episode represents Jack, while the tigers represent the daughters of Aku. It is interesting to note that the tigers are the only other creatures besides humans that naturally prey on wolves. I didn't think this was really needed. Honestly, it was cool, I guess, but I was also just like, Jack is injured, the wolf is injured. They both went to a crossroad, and I don't know. It just seemed kind of like overkill. Also, Aku's teeth now are outlined in black instead of red, which is interesting. I did not pick up on that. We also see a more mild tempered Aku in this episode compared to some of the past episodes. He does not execute the mud aliens or send them to the pit of hate when they dirtied his floor unintentionally. Jack is almost in like nothing here. This could be a nod to the almost naked appearance. Jack is naked. I liked that one. If you guys go watch that review. And then the last thing here, guys, the background music in the tomb scene is a version of the Ecstasy of Gold, which is a film score of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. In the movie, the song also plays when Tuco searches for a grave, similarly how the daughters of Aku search for Jack. And if you guys remember, they did do like kind of a parody of The Good, Bad, and the Ugly with the train scene with Ezekiel Clench and Josephine. So that's cool. It's kind of like a nod to their own show as well. But Gendy always touching on past genres, and those are our Jack facts for this week. All right, guys, that's it. Another episode down. That is episode 54, I believe. So we got 8 more to go. Thanks for checking out Project Potter, guys. Thanks for checking out the Gotta Get Back, Samurai Jack review. Like, comment, subscribe. Go check out the other content on the channel. Ring that bell notification. And until next time, guys, gotta get back.